Hello and you're very welcome to another JMac podcast. I'm John Van. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgretch.com and Attack.ie. Use promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgretch.com and get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Attack.ie. Be attack minded. And tonight I'm joined by former Wexford footballer Matty Ford, former Antrim footballer Kevin McGurdy to talk about last weekend's All-Ireland quarterfinals. So really look forward to chatting to the lads tonight. How are you keeping, Matty?
Good, John. Obviously, probably our biggest weekend of the championship so far. There's a few juicy talking points coming out with, and then a few maybe not so as well. But look at a good weekend of football and some unbelievable individual performances, and I'm sure we'll get on to them in the next hour or so.
1 out of 4 is not bad, Matty.
I think I got 3 out of 4, did I?
Or no.
No, in the predictions. No, look at there was a couple of them had the potential to be a bit one-sided in the war, but I suppose the Kerry Mayo one is the really disappointing one. It never really got going. Kerry looked to do it kind of at their ease. I still like people are kind of saying that Mayo they were there for the taking on the day, possibly were, but not by that. I don't think not by that Mayo team anyway. They were too completely toothless. But as I said, I'm sure we'll get a bit further into that as we go along this evening.
Yeah, absolutely will. We absolutely will. Mr. McGurdy, how are you keeping?
Great, John. I suppose, like Matty, really looking forward to the next hour and a half or so. This is really going to be an interesting conversation. Coming back from what we've just seen over the last couple of days. I suppose you're getting somebody that's watched the game on TV, so maybe sees a wee bit more. And the great Matty Ford had the pleasure of being in Croke Park yesterday. So, from somebody that was on the ground to somebody that had seen it as an overview, I'm sure we'll have many talking points. But for once I got it right this weekend. I called 4 provincial winners. And the interesting thing, John, is now, and as Matty said, we're getting down to the business end of the championship. We've got the 2 teams that everybody sort of thought at the start of the year going head to head. And yet, in complete contrast on the other side of the draw, we've got 2 teams that maybe nobody really thought at the start of the year would be able to get to an All-Ireland final, having that real big opportunity. So, it's going to be really interesting going forward. And, as I say, I'm really looking forward to picking the bones out of the 4 games we've seen over the weekend. Absolutely.
Yeah, before we crack into it, lads, James Horan has obviously stepped down as the Mayo manager this evening. I suppose no massive surprises, especially after yesterday's result, lads. I can't be overly amazed by it. I think the journey is end for James Horan. Matty Ford, what's the verdict on it?
Yeah, actually, look, we were just kind of discussing it there before we came on. I suppose it was the most on-Mayo-like performance over the last number of years. And look, to be fairness, they've been dogged through the year with injuries to really big players. If you look at any teams, probably in any sport, particularly in Gaelic football, you need forwards to win games, and they've taken out their 2 best forwards, arguably, this year with Ryan O'Donoghue and Tommy Conroy being gone. And I think the Mayo forwards might have scored 8 points between them yesterday, something along those lines. That's not going to cut it at this level. And if you look at Mayo when they were playing really well, they had numerous really good forwards. Obviously, Keelan O'Connor being the main one, but they had plenty of backup. Look at Donegal the year that won it was Murphy, McBrearty, McFadden. You keep going, McHugh. So you need, you cannot rely on one player at this level. And we're probably over reliant on Keelan O'Connor. And look at Thomas Sullivan ended up, cleaning him out. He scored 3 points in play himself, and I think he kept him to 1 point, with one unbelievable point in fairness to him in the first half. But it's not a major surprise. Look, I don't really know where Mayo go from here, but as I said, to open with, there was the most on-Mayo-like performance over the last 10-12 years, where they went out very, very meekly, I think, in the end. And 13 points was it is not going to win you a championship match in an All-Ireland quarter final. But look, it's probably not a huge surprise. I think I'm sure he'll probably get stick from some quarters, but he has done a huge amount for Mayo football over in his 2 spells with Connacht titles. But I suppose they've always been looking to win in All Ireland. Less than that is probably seen as failure. But I suppose it depends on who's looking at it. But he has done some job, and I don't think he owes anything to Mayo. Has he made mistakes? Of course he has. Who hasn't? Who's been involved with a football team, either playing or managing? But he's a Mayo man through and through, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done, and particularly coming back, because he was on a real hide into nothing. And look, as it turned out, there's another Connacht title or 2 there, but they obviously didn't land a big one. But they're down to the bones. There's probably a handful of players there, as we said, who are under on their last legs as well, and they need probably someone new and fresh to come in and start introducing some of these guys from the two good under 21 teams they've had, and maybe try and push it on again. But I think it's kind of the end of that Mayo team as we know it. The team was in that played in those All Ireland finals, and I think as I said, James Horan doesn't like the Mayo football.
I suppose Kev, as Matty was rightly saying, he doesn't, and his record speaks for itself. In fairness, we have to give him huge credit because, look, I know they didn't get the Holy Grail, win the All Ireland, but many's iconic title, trophies won, and All Ireland final appearances. So not many managers can say that, Kev. But look, great stint, but unfortunately, his days were definitely numbered.
Yeah, I think after yesterday, the writing was on the wall. As Matty said, it was the manner of the defeat rather than where the team is at or what James is given. It was a damn squid, let's be honest. It was a really poor performance. And it's been a very quick decision, let's be honest. After less than 24 hours, James has decided that time to go. I think he's had 8, maybe 9 years as Mayo manager over 2 stints. Mm-hmm. I think he's 6 Connacht titles. He's won National League title. As Matty said, he owes nothing to nobody. Mm-hmm. He's built a team he can back in when really many people who might have been offered the job would have walked away very quickly from it. He's brought in some new blood and developed that, in terms of Fergal Boland's come in, Matthew Ryan's come in, Conor Loftus come in that time, and that sort of second team that he's built. Back-to-back All-Irelands in his first, back-to-back All-Ireland final, appearances in his first tenure, back-to-back All-Ireland final appearances in his second tenure, going into Croke Park, with Mayo, especially in the league this year, what a performance against Dublin. He gave them a lot of belief, and he climbed a mountain with them and just wasn't able to get them to the pinnacle of it. And at the minute, Matty's rightly articulated, a lot of these guys are at the tail. A lot of these guys that have given so much good service to Mayo, tail end of their careers, the O'Sheas, the Rob Henleys, the Keegans of this world, maybe even the Paddy Durkins, the Kevin McLaughlin, certainly. So Mayo are at a real crossroads at the minute. They've got, obviously they're back in the minor final, which is great to see. According to our good friend Finian Hanley, they've had a couple of decent under 21 teams, maybe that just haven't peaked the way they should have in the last couple of years. So look, there maybe is some bright shoots coming through. We'll maybe come to talk about it a bit later, but again, back to Finian, he's maybe read the right call today in our WhatsApp group. Somebody like Jim McGuinness, I think Mayo need a big name. Yeah, they need a real big name. So, it's going to be really interesting to see through the winter what happens with the likes of Keegan, Durkin, McLaughlin, these sort of more seasoned campaigners, where they go. But yeah, for James, in terms of James Horan, he owes nothing to nobody. He's given great service to Mayo. He brought them so many great days in Croke Park, but unfortunately they just weren't able to get over the hill. And that's what happens sometimes. That's the nature of sport, in terms of a game of inches, as the Americans would say, and he just didn't get over that final inch.
Very, very close to over the years, I must say. So best wishes to James Horan, and no doubt he'll jump straight back into the media, so I don't think it'll be too bad for him. In fairness, Sky Sports will come knocking once again. But before we crack into the action, lads, we've the GA.ie football team of the week. So in between the sticks, you had Ethan Rafferty, Lee Gannon, Chrissy McCaig, Tom O'Sullivan, Garrett McKinnis, James Morgan, Kieran Malloy, David Moran, Killian McDade. Half forward line, Kieran Kilkenny, Matthew Tierney, Conor Glass. Full forward line of Rob Trinity, Kev, you love that one. Shane McGuigan and Owen Cleary completing the team. Players, football of the week is going to be Shane McGuigan. Goal was Killian McDade, and Kerry's Tom O'Sullivan. So any thoughts or opinions on that team of the week, Matty?
Look, you could make a case there, I'm sure, for certainly a couple of others, in numerous positions, but the forwards kind of, I suppose, nearly picked themselves. But particularly in that first game yesterday, there was a lot of really, really good performances. It was a bit of a throwback to the old days. It was kind of a bit of a shootout. It was cagey enough in the first half, but the shackles really came off in the second half. And I'm sure, well, first of all, Armagh are probably kicking themselves that they didn't just go for it earlier and play a little bit more abandoned instead of probably less structure. But Galway would have been pretty sick this morning had they lost it. But look, you could probably make a case for 10 more players to be in that team. I think they probably have got their 3 footballers of the week, I'd say, fairly spot on, and that'll be a close enough contest. Obviously, Shane McGuigan shot the lights out with 1-7 from play, but I think you might be far away with Killian McDade in context of how close the game was and the goal and the point and stuff like that, and just his all-round contribution in a game that went on for that length. So look, you wouldn't begrudge any of the three of them. They're three unbelievable individual performances, but I just think McDade's in the context of the game that was so close. Like, Derry won out handy enough, and the same with Kerry. So look, and there wouldn't be begrudging either Thomas Sullivan or Shane McGuigan. But I just feel Killian McDade, I said, taking it in context, was the footballer of the week this week.
And I suppose, Kev, obviously you're kind of talking up Rob Trinity from Galway a lot. Is people kind of sleeping on the form and guile that man's showing presently? Like, he really is shooting the lights out, and I know all the talk is about Walsh and Comer at the minute, but Finnerty's having a fine championship, Kev.
Yeah, I said it I'm not just saying to say this to viewers, but I did say it earlier on the year. I said it in our WhatsApp group. I've been really impressed with him when he swings that left boot. He's got a very sexy wander, and a lot yesterday. He didn't get the attention that maybe he needed. He drifts. He has this. I think even Fitzmaurice put it beautifully yesterday on commentary. He's this ability just to drift off his man, come round in that arc, just find that bit of space, and when he swings that foot, he's deadly. I think I have it here. He had 5 shots yesterday on target, 4 scores. He came off and then back on again, which was a good move by Pádraig Joyce, in fairness to him, bring them back in, give him a bit of a rest, and then obviously back in at extra time. But Finnerty's really, really impressed me this year. There's always a kid comes on the scene every year, and you're thinking, this kid will light up the championship. Obviously we're seeing a couple of new dubs coming on the scene, the likes of Lee Gannon, the likes of Sean Nahev, the likes of Bulger as well, Bulger as well in there. But, Finnerty for me has been, he's a great boy, because there's a lot of focus on Comer. There's a lot of focus on Shane Walsh. There's going to be a lot of focus on Tierney, who had an unbelievable game. We'll come to talk about that in a second or two. But yeah, Finnerty's really, really impressed me. And he's a big lad too. I think towards the end of the game yesterday, he won a big high catch, and if he had a wee bit more composure, he could have led that off for a score. So for his first, maybe second year in around championship football, he's a big plus. Could you just read me the forward line again, John? I didn't quite catch the forward line.
The full forward line was the half forward and full forward.
Yes, please.
Yeah, half forward is Kieran Kilkenny, Matthew Tierney, Conor Glass, Rob Finnerty, Shane McGuigan, and Owen Cleary.
Yeah, no, that's again,
different positions. Conor Glass midfield. Yeah.
Yeah, the two in there that I'd be looking at is Paul Cassie from Derry has really impressed me over the last 3 or 4 games. His energy getting up and down the park, he's vital to Derry's game plan. We'll come to talk about that, but he also adds to the scoreboard. He looks a wee bit Brawley-esque as a footballer, socks up and sort of, he doesn't really look like a Gaelic footballer, but he's very, very effective at the minute in our game plan. So he's someone. Benny Hearn's another one that,
Benny,
possibly
could
be in with the shout. And one of the guys that we'll come to talk about, I'm sure, for David Moran's in the team in the middle of the park, and rightly so. But another sort of veteran from that 2014 Kerry win for me that impressed yesterday was Paul Geaney in patches. I thought he was back to the old Paul Geaney, and I'll talk about that in a wee bit more length when we come to the Kerry game. So, yeah, maybe them guys possibly as alternatives.
Maybe Stephen Campbell, maybe an honourable mention as well. I thought he got through a lot of work yesterday, 3 excellent points in play as well. So I would look at, we could pick, it's a bit like the All-Stars, we could pick 10 different teams, and we wouldn't agree.
Lads, you have to hand it to Kieran Kilkenny on the bounce since 2013. Like, you could have him in your team of the week every time he plays. He's just an absolutely outrageous footballer, lads.
Yeah, just like even when Dublin were really poor to start the year, he was the one fella who week in, week out, and was playing week in, week out, who was turning out really, really good performances and trying to kind of probably keep the whole thing together at that stage. But it's some going, like, to be able to be still doing it, the miles on the clock, probably
at a very high level.
At the top level, at the very top level, and again, the very top teams, the very top players week in, week out. But look, it probably makes it easier, the fact that you're in with a shout to win the All-Ireland every year, but still his longevity and his quality performance week in, week out is, it's right up there with himself and McCarthy, I would say, in the last 10, 12 years.
David Moore in midfield as well. Fair play to him.
All-time great. All-time great. No doubts about it. Even no matter what happens the rest of his career, all-time great in the GA.
His level of consistency.
his level of consistency. I said it last year when I was on with you in December, that the reason why he was in the All-Star team for me last year was his consistency right across the league and the championship last year. Okay, yes, second half against Mayo last year, maybe some question marks. But, you know, when you take that 30 minutes of football, 35 minutes of football in isolation last year to the 8 or 9 games he had before that, where he was just incredible. Every game he produces. And you know what? If you want to beat Dublin, simple as this, you have to try and stop Brian Fenton and Kieran Kilkenny, because they are two serious cogs for them.
Yeah, and in fairness, Moran really rolled back the years yesterday. He was running away from guys, like, you know, like he was in his mid-20s, not his mid-30s. He was exceptionally kicked a couple of brilliant points, but like he was winning kickouts. He was doing everything yesterday. Like he destroyed the Mayo midfield on his own. Like, and realistically, if Jack Barry had been fit, he's been playing ahead of him all year, which is, you know, mad to think that Jack Barry actually would have been playing yesterday had he been available. But I thought Moran actually was a really good shout for man of the match yesterday. He was outstanding.
Yeah, so there's the team of the week and footballer of the week nominees, lads. So it'll be interesting to see who get footballer of the week tomorrow. So lots of good candidates there, lads. So we'll crack into the weekend's action that just took place. Only one place to start, lads. In the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship quarter-final in Croke Park, it was Galway 221, Armagh 318, and Galway obviously won 4-1 on penalties. So there you go, massive game. Penalties has finally been brought in for a huge game. Kevin McGurty, lots of talking points for this one. We'd high drama. We'd a Rio O'Neill equaliser at the end. We'd Galway goals. We'd Armagh late goals. We'd fight. We'd absolutely everything. What a game, Kev. I don't know where you start.
Do you want me to start by firing this over to Matty Ford, because he was at the game, and I think it would be brilliant for him to encapsulate what he told me off air about the atmosphere and everything that was positive about this game. And I think it would be good for him to start, if I'm honest.
Whatever suits you.
Just Kev, you put me on the spot here.
Not like
look, I don't actually go to many matches anymore. I certainly haven't been in Croke Park in a while, but I thought these had the look of two games that could, you know, really be kickstart the championship, I suppose, to a certain extent. We've had good games in Ulster, but the All-Ireland series to really kickstart it. You know, so we headed off anyway and thought we'd get there handy enough. We got to the bottom of East Wall Road in Dublin, and it was packed with orange and white. So a lot of them obviously came down the Port Tunnel. They couldn't get down the M1 and into the city that way, and we'd heard that going up. You know, there was tailbacks coming down the M1 motorway and that. So eventually got parked up off just off Ballybock Road, but it was literally. Like there was only one team playing. There was orange and white everywhere, and like we just walked straight into the stadium. We were actually a few minutes late getting in because there was massive queues getting into the Hog. And when you got in there, like the noise and the colour, we're talking about, you know, the red and white in Clones today, the Ulster final. Well, the orange and white in Croke Park yesterday it was unbelievable. You literally had to be there to see it, and the noise and the atmosphere. So we could hear the match starting just as we're trying to come through the turnstiles, and I think Armagh scored first, and you hear the whole place erupting. But you know, the first half was very much nip and tuck. Armagh started off at 100 miles an hour and looked like they were going to run away from Galway, but eventually, like Kevin said, in fairness, about 14-15 minutes in, Galway got a real handle in midfield and, you know, really evened it up and really got back into it. But there's a couple of interest. I think Armagh had a couple of decent goal chances in the first half that they didn't make best use of. There's one blasted over the bar. I think Nugent won a ball in the square. It was an unbelievable ball in from Reno O'Neill, and I think it was Greg McCabe ran by him clean through on goal, and he turned and shot himself. Like, it just, to me, it was something you'd be teaching under 10. If there's a guy going by you, he gets the ball every single time. Now, I'm not saying, look, it wouldn't make a difference, but they didn't really create really good goal chances like Galway did. But look, you don't know where to start with this. It had literally everything. You know, there was goals, there was points, there was serious stuff going on off the ball. I watched the match last night, and it's nearly like watching the match with me. That is like two different games to a certain extent. Like, I know Kevin was saying yesterday in our WhatsApp group, like how James Morgan lasted the 90 odd minutes with the treatment he was giving Shane Walsh. And look, I'm probably talking from the corner forward union here, but like the stuff that was going on off the ball was, you know, it was awful. Like, and how it wasn't being seen, and like what most referees are doing now, and it's really something that really annoys me, is two lads are grappling on the ground, go over and book the two of them. You know, really stupid. As a forward, and I'm sure Kevin will tell you the same, or if Daniel is on here or whatever, you are not going out to try and get involved. You're trying to avoid contact as much as you possibly can for as long as you can in the game. You are not trying to get involved in a pulling and dragging match with a cornerback when your team has the ball. It just does not make sense. But like, it's an easy thing for the referee to come up, the two of them are holding each other, oh, I'll give both of them a yellow card, hand it out. Like, and it's something no more than other stuff we're going to talk about that needs to be looked at, because it's just nonsense. Like, Aidan O'Shea, in my opinion, rightly got a black card. Kerry were taking a kick out. Why would David Moran hold on to Aidan O'Shea? It does not, or David Clifford, it does not make sense. But look, there was battles going on over the field, but to be fair, a lot of it was really good. It was like the fitness levels and the S&C levels of these lads was unbelievable. It did absolutely waver in extra time, but there was a serious heat there yesterday. It was really, really warm in the first half, but Armagh were dead and buried, and like two bang average Route 1 balls into the goal who were really badly dealt with by the keeper, it has to be said, and gets them back into the game. But like when Rian O'Neill kicked the free, which was like 50 something meters, it had to be on an angle, and like had plenty on it, I thought the roof was going to lift off. It plays went mental, and I suppose look at that probably led then to what we see at the end of it. There's a lot of blood up in a lot of players, but Galway really should have had this game closed out once and for all. I think it was Matthew Tierney went through and blasted the ball over the bar near the end. He has two guys to his left, one of who's Shane Walsh, who actually had got free of James Morgan for once. I'd be giving the likes of that guy the ball anyway, and they could have really just they had it dead and buried. But as a neutral, it's probably one of, if not the best football match I was ever at in Croke Park.
Same as 2013 Dublin Kerry, Matty.
To be honest, I actually think I had more. I think I had more, because when you throw in like penalties, which I'm not a fan of, the extra time. Look at we can call it a row. What to me it wasn't really a row. It was a lot pushing and shoving. Obviously there's an incident in it I'm sure we're going to get on to, and unsavoury and not nice and all the rest of it, and it'll be dealt with, and I think that's where it should be left. But this game had a bit of everything. It was unbelievable, and we were delighted when the scene going to extra time, and I think there's a suffering guy from Galway beside me, and I remember saying about 5 or 6 minutes into extra time, you could be going to penalties here as well, and he's just shaking his head. They were literally worn out. You think some of these lads around us were playing. It was the atmosphere, and it was just electric. And when you see that, you'd be wondering, we know the rules, the game ends on the day or whatever, but there is a weekend next weekend. Why not put it on as a replay with the All-Ireland hurling semi-final? And I'll tell you, there's been some atmosphere in the game next week, and to get that Armagh crowd back again, it's their first.
More money for the GA, buddy.
Look at that too, but look at it. I think, to be fair, as I said, we know the rules. We know it ends in a penalty shootout. Everyone's known that from the start of the year. But look at maybe when you get to a quarter final and there is the week there, these guys were out on their feet come extra time. And Shane Walsh took his penalty, and I don't know if you can see it on telly. He had to be almost carried back from where he took the penalty back to where the Galway subs was, and he was holding his ribs. Like, he was in really, really bad shape. Like, I don't know how he was able to actually stand up and take a penalty. So them lads, a lot of them, I'm sure, have to get up and go to work this morning as well. And while you're a Galway fella, you'll be probably, I wouldn't say jump out of bed, but you'll roll out and get going. But it would be, I think it'd have been only fair maybe to have a replay next Saturday night, and the atmosphere and again would have been unbelievable, and throwing an All-Ireland hurling semi-final with it. But look, it's the game, it had everything. The gouging incident, I suppose, let it be dealt with. The fella that done it, I'm sure he's waking up this morning. Tiernan Kelly, and look at he knows better than anyone. He's after doing wrong, but look at leave him alone. Me going on to social media and saying he's a disgrace and he should never play again. That's not of any benefit to him. It's not of any benefit to me, and it's not of any benefit to anybody. So look at leave it lie. Whatever's going to be done is going to be done, and we're not the ones to decide. What's going to happen. Leave the fella alone. I'm sure he doesn't for 1 second do anything other than regret what he done yesterday. And as I said, the blood was really up, and particularly the Armagh lads running in there yesterday at half time or at the end of normal time after getting themselves back from a complete dead bury position, 6 down with what was it, about 12 or 13 to go and a man down. So you can see absolutely why. Look, it would have been very simple. Answer to it is have one team in each dressing room, particularly when you have 2 games. One team about one side,
crazy stuff, yeah.
Or to have all these protocols. I remember trying to get onto the pitch years ago, a couple of minutes ahead of our time in Croke Park to warm up. No, you're out at 2:38. This kind of nonsense. So, if they're going to do that, have them in the same dressing room. Say right at half time, Armagh go in first. At the end of normal time, Armagh go in first. Simple.
But even for Pork, Joyce and Geezer to bring the 2 teams in, like Jesus, Matty, you played against and with pair of boys. Like surely they have enough common sense to say, right, these 2 teams, if they jog in to the dressing room, surely the Armagh lads, might potentially do something. Go with lads, like surely bring them back. Let 2.
I know. I've seen actually John Kiley doing it on a good few occasions with Limerick. I'm sure it's obviously something that's preempted before the match. But I'm sure they had other things to be thinking about before the game. And look, with 15 minutes to go, I'm sure neither Geezer nor Pádraig were thinking about, you know, who goes into the dressing room
Well,
first, because
suppose, yeah.
Geezer was trying to get his team back into it, and Pádraig Joyce was probably wondering who they're playing, or worrying about the semi-final, because the game looked over and done. So, you know, I think, and I looked at it several times last night, barring the gouging incident and one of the Galway subs swinging at that fella, there was absolutely nothing in it. So, does it look bad? It does. It's a lot, but it was in my opinion, it was completely harmless.
The mad thing is, and I suppose I was saying to a chap yesterday, like sometimes maybe people and players do realise, like, these games are on the TV. You have Twitter, you have Facebook, you have Snapchat, you have Instagram, you have WhatsApp. So I know the fella to eye gouge, and we don't want to focus too much in on it, but like, we have to touch on it as well. Kev, what was he thinking?
Yeah, I think Matty summed it up pretty well. Look, John, I don't think we should focus on this, and I mean that. You know, okay, there's an eye gouge. Listen, have I done wrong in life? Yeah. Have I done more than anybody? Have I done wrong in a match? I got sent off for Antrim one day against Fermanagh, Reckless. Matty and me had a conversation off air. He done something wrong one day. We all admit it. We set up. We're an amateur organisation, right? The lad done something yesterday in the heat of a moment when the tension was up. There was Croke Park was full. You know, he was in around his teammates. I think he had a bit of a bad injury himself this season. He's maybe a wee bit frustrated, right? And he's done something wrong. Now, let the authorities deal with him. That's it. All this, excuse my language, all this bollocks today on social media of Matt Cooper getting involved, the Minister for Sport getting involved, whatever else. Park it, leave it. There's a process within the GA to be gone through now. He'll be dealt with. We all accept that what happened yesterday in terms of the eye gouging incident was not acceptable. He tonight himself knows that it's not acceptable. Now, park it, 24 hours later, leave it, that's it, done. Get off social media with it. Stop all these nonsense about lifetime bans and bollocks like that, right? Let's now move away from this, John, while we're on this podcast, and focus on what was yesterday the most unbelievable game I've seen in maybe 10 years in the GA.
True, yeah.
Matty had said it from inside the stadium. Let me tell you, Matty, from outside the stadium. I was in a bar in Edinburgh, and the atmosphere was unbelievable. This game had everything, absolutely everything. It had bad refereeing, it had poor shot selection, it had poor basic skills, it had some of the best scores you've ever seen, it had drama, it had poor goalkeeping, it had the madness that is the GA rules to go to, you know, extra time, and then all this paperwork being filled out that apparently it's a new game, but it's still the same game, if you know what I mean. You know, it just had everything that you wanted. A great tackling, you know, for me, great individual performances. But most importantly, I think Matty said this in a certain way, and I'll try and articulate it in a different way. I think Matty said the words were the fitness and strength and conditioning of these players. These were amateur athletes yesterday in front of 80,000 that built, guts and thunder. It was unbelievable to see the passion. Unbelievable when it was channeled in the right direction. You know, long ball in at one stage to Rian O'Neill. You know, the strength to hold off three men, you know, to knock the ball to the side. The long kick pass in once or twice from Ethan Rafferty. Ethan Rafferty's run towards the end where he takes on three men, has that sense of adventure, gives it to Jamar Hall, knocks it over the bar. It was like a game I hadn't seen in so long. It brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. So let's focus on that. Now, Matty said it, and this game is very easily summarised in a way. Galway, after the first 15 minutes, were absolutely the better team. We're in the ascendancy, and that is with the fact that, let's be honest, there are two marquee players, Comer and Shane Walsh, that drifted in and out of the game very much, but they didn't pose an awful lot of attacking threat that we would like to see as supporters or maybe the media or whatever else in terms of threatening the scoreboard from play. They were caught a lot away from goal, maybe 30, 40, 50 yards. In particular, Shane Walsh drifted out the field a lot. But Galway were much the better team after the first 15 minutes. Armagh started a house on fire. Galway eventually got the grips with them at the back. You know, the likes of Sean Kelly, the likes of McHugh, the wing back, Malloy, the other wing back, you know, dropping back in there, Killian McDade. But in particular, if you actually look at Paul Conroy's performance in the first half, The first 15 minutes, Paul Conroy was shocking. Absolutely. He was kicking balls over the sideline with his bad foot. He would just look nervous. And as the game went on, he grew in and grew into the game and became a leader. And the way that his game went was sort of a microcosm of the way that Galway had. They were nervous and they eventually grew into the game. And, Matty rightly articulates, Armagh maybe had one or two chances where they didn't go for the goal. And I think the one player for me that stood out yesterday, even more than probably Killian McDaid, even more than Rian O'Neill, I think for me, the one player yesterday that really impressed me, bar Finnerty and Galway side, was Matthew Tierney. And if we look at the goals that Galway got, he creates the first goal. And I want to come back to Matty's point about Armagh. Tierney goes through for the goal, slams a brilliant shot that Rafferty saves off the crossbar, in fairness to him. The Galway wing back, I think it's McHugh, gets it, dishes the ball out to Tierney, and he's unselfish in front of goal. He gets the goalkeeper, slips him out of play, and it's an easy goal for the Galway wing half forward. When Armagh get the second goal, and they're in the ascendancy at that game, and you're looking to shut down shop towards the end, Tierney then makes that vital run. He breaks the line. He comes through, lays the ball off for Killian McDaid to score the goal. I thought he was brilliant yesterday. He scored a couple of points from long range as well at centre half forward. A real leadership performance. Now, the big problem for Galway is this. They capitulated yesterday. Now, this is maybe the third time in this programme I've come back to say I told you so. But I have said this, John. And, Finian Hanley has said this as well on our WhatsApp group. Galway haven't had a good goalkeeper for 7 or 8 years. It's caused them issues and problems. Mm-hmm. All 3 goals yesterday, plus 2 points from a kick-out, were caused by the goalkeeper. Now, you can't win an All-Ireland like that. You can't get to a final like that. Derry will punish them, and they will not get back in against Derry. That's a simple fact of the matter. They will not. And, I think Paul Joyce is I know Matty's very friendly with him, but he's a real big issue to make here. This guy's causing him awful trouble. He can't be leaking at the back and expect to get what he got yesterday up front. So that would really annoy me from Galway. They were in cruise control, did the match, won 7 or 8 points up. It's about game management at that stage. Get back into your zone, pick the team off on the break, score a point, back into the zone. Goalkeeper caused them issues. I would also be quite annoyed at Shane Walsh in terms of game management, in terms of a player that he is, a guy that, he's maybe 5 or 6 seasons now into his career. You'd expect him to be holding the ball, bringing it into the corner, seeing the game out. He puts his own side under pressure. So there was a lot of issues towards the end for Galway the end of normal time, should I say, for Galway that really, in terms of men moving forward, they're going to have to look seriously at. Up front, Galway, as I said to her on the season, they're a potent side. They've got guys that will score all day long. Middle of the park, we're starting to see the strength that they have with Killian McDaid, who was exceptional yesterday, and again, Paul Conroy, as I say, who grew into the game. The big problem is what happens at the back, and that will define Galway's season, as I said to you, at the start of the league. And it's still going to be the case. From an Armagh perspective, moving forward, look, real bright shoots this season. McGinney's been in the job 7-8 years now. 6-7 years, sorry. Real bright shoots. They have beat in Division 1 this year. We all know what they've done. They've gone Dublin, beat them. They beat Tyrone at home. They've started to raise this temperature again in Armagh. For the first time in 15 years, we're seeing the Armagh guys, as Matty's rightly articulated, coming down Jones's Road. Real sense of enthusiasm. It's brilliant to see. But yesterday, maybe they need that defeat yesterday to get them back where they want to go, in terms of moving forward. So, Rian O'Neill's a real bright shoot. Soupy Campbell was good yesterday. Jason Duffy's been excellent all season for them. I felt once or twice yesterday they were maybe a wee bit overeager in the tackle, give away 2 or 3 stupid frees, one in particular in the first half that really annoyed me underneath the canal end when a guy pushed another guy in the back. it was an easy enough free for Shane Walsh.
Were they a bit too jazzed up at times, though, Kevin? Like, like the penalties, and we were kind of touching the WhatsApp group earlier, like yesterday. Like, did the nerves get them a bit? Were they just a bit too? Like, don't get me wrong, Croke Park, all the quarterfinal, you have to be top of the pops. But were they just a bit too jazzed up yesterday?
Possibly, but I mean, you have to understand this. Even this is probably Ryan O'Neill's first All-Ireland quarter-final in Croke Park. Probably somebody like Rory Grugan's second, who's played for 8-9 years. Obviously these guys were a wee bit nervous going in. Armagh just coming back to the fore. Remember, this has been a couple of years in the building. So what I'm trying to articulate is that, I think there is bright shoots there for McGeeney. Yesterday they hit the bar, and I would expect them to come back stronger next year. I don't see them having many retirements, if I'm honest with you.
No.
I really like the experiment of Ethan Rafferty and Nets when it works for them. Yes, again, it would come back once or twice. He did cause them a bit of problems with kickouts where Galway were able to turn them over. Maybe should have had a goal that time. Matty rightly articulates Matthew Tierney went through and he hit the shot, and I think Rafferty pushes over the bar when he had two men to his side. But, it's been a really good season for Armagh. They're back in Division 1. They look a solid Division 1 team. They're giving Kerry Dublin games. Obviously they beat Dublin. They beat Tyrone in their own, when Tyrone came to them this year. So, there's a lot there to build on for Armagh moving forward. And, yes, yesterday they'll probably rue the fact that they went ahead at one stage and, they didn't lock up shop. But to even get the extra time for Armagh yesterday was basically because it was a default because of Galway's defence.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose kind of Matty touching on to Armagh's performance, and obviously, as Kev was rightly saying, a lot of bright shoots, and obviously Ryan O'Neill, the clutch score at the end. We see Oisin McConville jumping up and down, like great moments. And it's this is yes, there was a massive platform for them, so they're definitely not gone away, Matty.
No, like look at it, and Kevin saying about retirements and stuff. I think the age profile of the team, the panel of the squad is very, very good, and I think they're probably only going to improve. To be honest, the more you play in Division 1 in the National League, the more you're going to improve and keep playing the big teams. Keep playing Kerry, keep playing Dublin. That's the, in my book, that is the way to improve. And we talked about it on here for the lower division teams. I think it works exactly the same at the top for the likes of an Armagh, who have been out of Division 1 for a good number of years. They need to get in and stay in there, and I think they will be a comfortable Division 1 team over the next 4 or 5 years. But I think that's their route to improve. And we discussed about Ulster, where the big three have probably come back to the pack, and Armagh and Derry are the next two to step up and be real contenders next year. So it'll be wide open again. But I actually think they are lacking a small bit up front still. I think if Ryan O'Neill is held, I do think they do struggle a bit. Like I think 70 odd minutes on the clock yesterday, only 13 points on the board, and I think the forwards probably at that stage had only scored about 7 points, including 7-8 points, including frees between them. So like that's not going to cut it. So he will need help. He's probably only going to get better, which is the great thing for Armagh. Grugan's goal was in extra time. I think what do you call it? This first goal was Aaron.
Okay.
Sorry. Leave that with me for a second. Apologies.
No,
in Nugent's goal. Sorry, it was an extra time as well. So they had only a point apiece. One of which is a mark, one which is a free, coming up to the end of normal time. So like they're going to need a better spread of scores. And like let's be fair, Donegal or Galway aren't the meanest defence you're going to play against. So they're going to need a better return than that. But I think personally, I'd love to see McGeeney staying there again next year. I think he's probably done enough to deserve it. Look at taking him from where they were when he took over. I'm sure there'll be people saying they should have won the game. Like I think they were lucky. They were not. I think they were very, very lucky to get the game to extra time. They didn't perform well. But look, you can't go into Croke Park with a new group of players like that and just start whipping it out of nowhere. I think it takes a little bit of time, and these Division 1 games I think will crown them. But Kevin is 100% right. Galway have serious issues around the goalkeeper, but I think actually it's a quarter final where both teams have issues with their keeper, to be honest. I think the Derry keeper is an accident waiting to happen as well, and I'm sure Galway will be looking at that on the reverse side. So look at it; it'll be interesting. I'll say you'll see a few high balls landing in both squares in a couple of weeks' time, but it seems to be a real issue for Galway goalkeeper over the last 8-9 years. They've caused huge issues, and like it should never have got to that yesterday. And I think probably had Sean Kelly been on in extra time, I don't think it probably would have. He'd been exceptional all day. Himself and Silk are there's some pair there at the back. But I think had he been there, and him not being there obviously is another story. It's one of the most ridiculous rules, if that's what they're saying. Of everything that happened in the row, himself and Aidan Nugent are the two most obvious peacemakers in the whole thing, and here the two were been sent off. Like, it's just, it just beggars belief. It's like the cards thing. So a black and yellow card carries into extra time, and a red card doesn't. It's just, I don't know. It beggars belief. But I think, look, at getting back to your point, there's a lot of really good stuff for Armagh to build on. And if I was an Armagh supporter, I'd be looking forward to the first round of the National League in February next year. Straight away, get a couple of guys back who are missing, like the Mackins, and look at whatever happens. Tiernan Kelly is a really fine footballer. If he's available to play next year, they can potentially have a really strong squad going forward.
John, just a couple of points on that, what Matty said about moving forward. Armagh's real next sort of peak or plateau that they want to reach is winning an Ulster Championship. If we look at where Derry were maybe at the start of this year, it was maybe getting out of Division 2 back up to Division 1, and they were able to win that Ulster Championship. And look at the confidence they have in that. Armagh haven't won them big derby games in Ulster over the last 6 or 7 years, and I think that is their real target next year, is to win Ulster. They will get good quality game in Division 1, but look, let's see what the Ulster Championship draw brings to them. Second point on it is, if we look at Donegal, do you remember Cassie scores the ball with the outside of the foot against Kildare, I think it is, in the last minute?
2011.
That was the coming of age of that Donegal team. They got beat in the semi-final then, was it by Dublin maybe? But that was the coming of age of that Donegal team. A lot of them guys hadn't been inside Croke Park for a while. So in comparison to Armagh yesterday, sometimes you have to go into inside Croke Park and just win a cliffhanger, just to get there. Yesterday was a cliffhanger. Okay, Armagh come out on the wrong side of it, but I think moving down the line that will serve them well. And the last point about it is that, Armagh are getting good quality games. And I think that Matty makes a brilliant point about up front. They're getting good quality games against good defenders. And Rian O'Neill has proved time and time again this year what a quality footballer he is. However, in 2 separate periods yesterday, in normal time, Armagh failed to score for 13 minutes. So I think it was 10 minutes before the half-time break and then 2 minutes afterwards. And then there was a period where they scored a point, the cornerback goes up and punches one over the bar, which was possibly another goal chance. And then they failed to score again for 13 minutes. So you can't win inside Croke Park when you fail to score for 26 minutes of a game in ordinary time. You just can't. And you can see 3 goals as well. So, Manny makes a really good point about Rian maybe needing a bit more help, unearthing a bit of new talent coming into the new season up front, or looking at a couple of different attacking options.
Absolutely, and obviously, a word on Kieran McGeeney as well, lads. Obviously, I think it was Mark Sybottom posed some very kind of challenging questions to him, I suppose, after the game. Matty, suppose, I don't know, did you get to watch the clip? Mark was very cutting, I suppose, in his questions towards Kieran, I suppose, regarding all the incidents, the handbags. So, your thoughts on that interview?
Yeah, I did see it, and to be honest, it was a tough enough line of question in terms of McGeeney probably hadn't even got a decent chance to look at it himself, and when it happened where we were on the other side in the Hogan stand, it looked an awful lot worse than it is. But when you actually see it, what actually did happen, barring the gouging incident and the swing after, there's nothing in it as far as I'd be concerned. So he was really going after him to try and get a reaction, and as far as I'd be concerned, I think it was a little bit unfair. I think he hadn't probably got a chance to look at it properly, and you're kind of guessing, and you're I know from where McGeeney is coming from, you're obviously not trying to hang on your own players, I suppose, for want of a better phrase, but you have to be seen to be saying something, and he really went after him. But Kieran's not stupid. He's been around long enough, and as I said, I think he was well entitled to say what he said, and it didn't really go anywhere in the end. But I think McGeeney was well entitled to hold his counsel on it. He'd actually seen exactly what happened. It's not the time straight after a match like that to be probably asking what's went on when you haven't got had a proper chance to have a proper look at it.
Kev, what about yourself?
No, obviously, I know Mark very well. I've worked with Mark in the past. I know Kieran, obviously, and I just want to say this, that Mark's there to ask the hard questions. I think Manny makes really decent point that it was in the heat straight after the match when maybe he hadn't seen the hindsight of what had gone on or what had not gone on. You know, media can blow these things out of the water. Mark's already asked hard questions, and that's his job. And, you know, he'll be unforgiven for it. In terms of Kieran, what I would say is that he maybe had more time to digest what had happened before he came out to be interviewed by RTE. But all credit to him. You know, in the Sunday game last night, he did say that he does not, he condones anything like that does happen. So maybe he had the hindsight of being told or actually watching it. So again, Matty's point of it was in the heat straight afterwards. He maybe hadn't seen it. You know, we see Premiership games or we see golf tournaments or we see American football. The guys need the benefit of video analysis to truly reflect on what has happened. But that's a journalist's job. So, you know, if Mark asked me that question, I wouldn't fall out with him because that's what he's there to do. You know, and yeah, you know, at the end of the day, he's achieved his goal as a journalist. We all have listened to the clip, and that's what he's there to do. He's there to get viewing figures. That's what the public wanted to hear. Yeah,
and I suppose Matty does make a good point at heat at the moment. But do you feel, maybe, I know obviously we all know what McGeeney's like. He's very stern. Like his line of response to Mark's questioning Kev, or what you reckon?
No, I didn't see any problem with it. I mean, if Matty will tell you yourself, John, if you're standing at a supermarket and a guy pushes you, you're going to ask them, look, what are you doing? And then push him back. You know, you're going to defend your own ground. You know, if you're standing in a football field, you know, and Matty said earlier about playing cornerback or corner forward and the cornerback's gripping you, you're not going to sit there and not take his nonsense. If a guy goes over and pushes you, you're going to say, you know, within inside the confines and rules of the game or within inside the heat of the moment, you're going to defend your own territory and ground. Of course you are. So I see no problem in Kieran's response that way. You know, the problem comes when boys are throwing all out punches, or maybe the other bit I would have to say to you, Matty, is maybe the number 27 with a bib on for Armagh. He gripped the guy around the neck, you know.
Out of nowhere, yeah.
Out of the ground. So that's where I would have the problems with. But if a guy's coming over and pushing me, certainly I'm standing the ground. So I don't see any problem in what Kieran's saying there.
Super stuff. Right, lads, that's yesterday's game wrapped up nice and lovely, and we will move on to the other quarter-final that took place in Croke Park briefly. It was in Kerry, 118, Mayo 13 points, and obviously the aftermath is that James Horan has stepped away from the Mayo project, so he's gone, and yeah, we could be seeing a lot of change for Mayo coming down in the next few weeks. Matty Ford, your take on what really didn't live up to what we expected?
No, I think we were expecting it the other way around. We got the main course first, so we did very much yesterday. Just when the first game was over, the heavens opened, and it seemed like a lot of Armagh fans bailed off the hill and bailed out the stands. But to be fair, when the second game started, an awful lot of them had came back because the weather had somewhat cleared up again, and like there was a decent atmosphere to start the game. But it just, I think it was nearly like people were worn out. After the first game, it never kicked off. It never got going. Like as saying he's off air, like 10 minutes into the second half, you could hear the seagulls, you know, flying around Croke Park, and there wasn't a word, and like it never got going. It got mildly interesting when I think Mayo got it back to a point or two, but did they ever really look like doing anything? No, like Kerry were a pass away from getting in on goal a couple of times, and like they were, like, fair enough, it was, conditions weren't ideal, but like some of the quality of some of the passing balls going up over guys' heads and down at their feet and stuff like that, you know, from both sides was kind of really poor quality, I would say. But look, in fairness to Kerry, they haven't had a game in 4 weeks. They're after playing, you know, as I said, two poor enough Division 2 teams. I don't think anyone would disagree too much with that in regards to Limerick and Cork. Games the one pulling up, obviously, so they haven't had a proper test yet, and you could see why they're a bit rusty. And I think there's a bit more that game will bring him on. Like, you know, as we said, it's the most on Mayo-like performance over the last 10-15 years. And like James Horan's interview last night, and after the match, he was, you know, just completely, you know, looked like just drained from the whole thing. You know, whether there's something going on in the camp or it's just, you know, he's just, with the injuries and everything they've had rotten luck again. Like it's real Mayo luck, to be fair to them. You know, someone said if Mayo didn't have bad luck, they wouldn't have any luck, and it kind of looks like that to them, to be fair, over the last number of seasons. But it looks really disconsolate at the end of the match, and you know, I think scored 3 points in the last 30 minutes, 35 minutes. You know, Kerry were after ease, and you know, I think they'll be reasonably happy. 180 and David Clifford 1-3 maybe on one leg for part of the match. And I don't know how good it can't have been too bad. He was left on for practically all of the match, and that goal he scored was the most David Clifford like goal that we'll see. He just took off from the sideline with blind pace. I think if you have a bad ankle, you don't do that. But look at David Moran. I think was back to probably what he was playing about 5 or 6 years ago. He was cruising around the place. Thomas Sullivan was excellent. Jason Foley was really good. To be fair to them, like Tyke Morley really shored up the middle of the defence. They've got a lot meaner at the back, but like you have to couple that with Mayo's kind of really toothless attack. I think the forward scored 6 points between them, including frees. So look at they scored a couple of unbelievable points at the start. Like Aidan O'Shea in bad weather, it's really hard to do it in Croke Park off the outside of your boot. I think Conor Loftus had an amazing point on the sideline. Killian O'Connor turned inside the 14 on the wrong side and kicked one over the bar. Like, so they weren't going to keep going over the bar. They created chances, but they never ever really looked like getting close to Kerry. And Kerry scored 118, so I'm sure they'll be reasonably happy with that, and probably had if they were a little bit more ruthless, could have been in on goal another 2 or 3 times. But Sean O'Shea looked really classy. Yes, he's just done a couple of simple things, drop of the shoulder and a change of direction a couple of times, and a couple of dummy solos, and he really looked like he was playing in second gear along with a few others. I think one of the lads mentioned, I think probably Kev earlier on, Paul Geaney was back to his best, looked really, really sharp. And then when you looked at the 2 benches yesterday, I was just saying with a friend of mine who was with me at the match, like it was literally chalk and cheese. Kerry were unloading Micheál Burns and Tony Brosnan and players like this, and Mayo had nothing. No disrespect to anyone on the Mayo sideline, did no one of that quality. Because they're obviously already down their 2 best forwards. So I'm sure if they were up to it, they'd be there already. But it was a really, really flat atmosphere and kind of a really flat performance from Mayo, which is not like them. And I suppose James Horan stepping away is not a massive surprise after that. It looks like there's a bit of a rebuilding job. I know we say it as a bit of a cliche in the GA, but there's a bit of a rebuilding job needs to go on in Mayo, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few other retirements from the Mayo fold over the next number of weeks or months or coming up to the Christmas time. But as I just went out in a very un-Mayo like performance, but I think Kerry will be reasonably happy. It's their first decent bit of a test, but there's a much tougher one coming down the line in a fortnight's time.
Kevin, in fairness, the one thing you can say about this game is after the absolute madness between Galway and Armagh, it was a good game to kind of calm you down.
Mm-hmm. I think Sean Kavanagh said it right last night in the Sunday game, is that I think it was unfair in these 2 teams. I've seen people saying that today on social media as well. They're waiting about, okay, it's not back 20 minutes, it's not back 30 minutes, then it's not back an hour. Lads, what are they doing in the change room? The life was sucked out of it, Matty. I don't know, you were at the game, so probably that was the feeling inside the stadium. Maybe the teams felt that too. There's no doubt that was going to have a knock-on effect on both sides. Coming into the game, I thought everything on the day had to go right for Mayo. They've been labouring over the past couple of weeks, letting other teams build up a lead, coming from behind, doing the usual Mayo thing. But they started okay yesterday, and I thought maybe for 10, 15 minutes, okay, they might give Kerry a bit of problem here. As Matty rightly articulated, Killian O'Connor gets that point off Tom O'Sullivan, and I'm sitting back and going, wow, Tom O'Sullivan hasn't touched the hand on him here, and then we know who got the upper hand in that particular bout by the end of the game, So at the start, Mayo looked okay. Look, I feel really sorry for Desi Farrell, and people that watch this are going to go, wow. The options that Kerry have are incredible. Incredible. David Moran came to the table yesterday, and he's asked serious questions now. For David Moran not to be included in this semi-final is going to be crazy. After the performance he's just had. We got Jack Barry, we've got Dermot O'Connor, have just come through a great league. 3 good guys in around the middle of the park there. With Tony Brosnan, who was one of the players in the Sigerson this year, can play midfield, can play wing half forward, has shown his quality already. We've got Micheál Burns coming off the bench. We've got Killian Spillane contributing off the bench. We've got Paul Geaney moved back inside, where he's probably at his most potent. He's probably had a real lackluster 18 months from his own personal perspective. David Clifford was definitely not firing on all cylinders. Oisin Mullen's probably going away from Croke Park yesterday thinking he's done a pretty decent job on the best football in the country for the last couple of years, and still, Clifford scores that goal with great ease, great poise. Paddy Clifford was not overly influential as he's been maybe over the past 12, 14 months. So, you know, Kerry moving forward have great options. Paul Murphy again coming off the bench is another guy, All-Ireland experience, All-Ireland winning experience on him. And yes, Mayo were dead in terms of their performance. Going in at half-time, there was this air of inevitability that the game was just going to go one way. There was. And, you know, in fairness to James Horan, he tried Fergal Boland come on, Adrian Orr come on at one stage. But, you know, when you're producing players like Spillane, when you're producing players like Micheál Burns, that both contributed to the scoreboard, I just think Kerry have great options. And I think Matty mentioned another really good point here. At the back, Tag Morley and Jason Foley are key to them. And they're the sort of maybe the bit of difference that Jack O'Connor and Paddy Talley are bringing in. Defensively, they've been very weak over the last number of years. But why do I fancy them for the All-Ireland? And we'll come to talk about this. I don't think Dublin have the defenders anymore. The Philly McMahons, the Rory O'Carrolls, maybe the Mick Fitz of years gone by, the Keane O'Sullivan of years gone by to hold this carry forward line. I just think this carry forward line's potent. And there's so many different options. I mean, another option that people mightn't think about, but David Moore, 6'5". I would actually think about throwing him in full forward at one stage against Dublin, because the Dublin full back line isn't awfully big. You know, there's so many different options that Jack O'Connor has right now, and so many different scenarios that Desi Foyle's going to have to think about. The box was ticked basically for Kerry yesterday. 4 weeks out of competitive action. Yes, there was always going to be a wee bit of in-house games are good, but there was always going to be a wee bit of staleness. Clifford wasn't on top form, as I say. His brother wasn't, you know, but the other guys stepped up, the likes of the Guineas, the Mourns, and again, Matty said it, Sean O'Shea, what a class act, not only freeze, but bringing other people into the game and scoring himself. So everything looks good from a Kerry point of view. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to this game, because for me, Kerry are favourites. And as you know, John, myself and Matty are mad Kerry fans, and if they can't do it now, then I don't know when they're going to do it. Remember, we're now looking at Sean O'Shea 23-24, 22-23-24. We're looking at David Clifford the same. The amount of All-Ireland minors, under 21s, the guys now starting in this Kerry team have, yet they haven't transferred that into senior success. They now have to stand up. This game is not only about the quality that they'll bring, but they have to show these leadership skills coming into this game in 2 weeks' time.
I think Kerry, if they get a dry day in 2 weeks' time, will be a different animal as well. Like I said, they were a pass or a half a pass away yesterday from cutting Mayo open a few times. Like, and you know, Mayo, while they're struggling up front, they still have a decent defence. And I feel that if Kerry get on a dry day, I think they could cause serious problems down here with a fully fit crew. Like, again, we're talking about what Mayo had to bring off the bench. You know, it's not dissimilar to Dublin. I think Kerry have a serious upper hand there. And Kevin said it earlier on, if you can shut down to a certain extent, if Conor Callaghan doesn't play, it's a massive blow to Dublin. Obviously, I think that's probably stating the obvious, but we'll get on to the Dublin game in a few minutes. But you know, Kerry what have to bring off the bench, you know, they ran through to really finish Mayo off yesterday. Like, they knocked them out when they were pretty much on the canvas. But in fairness, there was two guys yesterday who really took the fight to Kerry all day. It was Jordan Flynn and Matthew Rand ran at him, and to be fair, to a certain extent, Stephen Cohen, they didn't give up the ghost, but you know, they were really fighting a lone battle. But I just think Kerry on a dry day will be a totally different animal than what they were yesterday. There was a lot of 50-50 ball going into Clifford yesterday. Mullen could get any contact on the ball yesterday. The ball was gone away from him on the surface in Croke Park. But I think on a dry day, it'll be a completely different animal.
I think that's all you can really say about that game, lads. Completely different to the other game. But there you go. Kerry march on to the All-Ireland semi-final against the Dubs in a few weeks' time. There's not much more you can say about that game. I think tickets will be very few and far between. And moving on to Saturday's action, lads, in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship quarter-final in Croke Park. It was Dublin, 21 points, Cork, 10 points. And Kev, what more can you say about this one?
It was a damn squid from even before we went into the game. We probably knew Dublin had started to find form in the second half of the league. You know, had really routed Kildare at the Leinster final. okay, there was talk of obviously James and Con weren't included yesterday, but realistically coming into the game, we knew that it was a long shot for Cork to put in any sort of performance. Now, a couple of things on the game. One, I thought the GA could have maybe brought this game to thirds. That's just my opinion. And they could have got a great atmosphere and a good crowd down there. Secondly, well, Cork started well enough, and for the first 20-25 minutes, they showed some bright shoots that they can take into next year. You know, Hurley, Sherlock causing a bit of issues up front. You know, they did hit a lot of bad wides, Cork. You know, what I would call kindergarten wides, primitive wides, maybe when they had opportunities. And you have to punish a team like Dublin. Again, Dublin's big leaders, Ciarán Kilkenny was phenomenal in the first half. Just his work rate, the way he buzzes around. He scored an unbelievable point as well in that period of time. You know, okay, it's 10-7. We're talking about Dean Rock, a guy that hasn't missed. I think this is a stat, John, you put in. He hasn't missed a free in terms of football this year.
The lads in the Sunday game were saying that last night. I could not believe it. Deadly
He hasn't
accurate.
missed a free. So
and
again,
even the frees even kicked against Cork from the very right hand corner, the left
The wrong
corner.
side, yeah.
I think in fairness, and I had to laugh at Cavan. He was saying, "Oh, we'll have to sign up to his kicking school." That was one good joke Cavan has ever made in the Sunday game.
Yeah, well, probably the last one he'll ever make. But you know,
Brendan Defenny was impressed with Cavan's makeup as well. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about it is, Rock again and again and again. It's not stupidity, and Jack O'Connor and Paddy Talley be working on this. If you foul Dublin and if you give away any sort of foul within inside 45, 50 yards, you will be punished. And, you know, for a while, he carried Dublin yesterday in that first half. They were sort of labouring a wee bit. Himself and Kilkenny were 2-4. And then all of a sudden, after half-time, you get that sprout where they come out and they totally, you know, they take over the game. I don't think Cork score again until the 48th minute after half-time. It's only a 3-point game, but really Brian Fenton comes to the fore, coming through on it. And really, what we're going to have to say is this was Dublin maybe in second or third gear, you know, and again, a bit like the Kerry match in the second half, even from 15 minutes in, there was a nerve inevitability about this game. Now, what I would say about it what I would take away from the game are Dublin have a bit of a problem at the back. And this is going to cause them issues. There's only a certain amount of fires that they can put out against Kerry at the minute. I think they don't have the personnel to put out all of Kerry's fires. Brian Hurley, when he wants to be, can be a fabulous, fabulous footballer.
He had a good game, yeah.
He's a lovely centre of gravity. He can spin a man. Maybe he does it too often, spins him, and then wants to spin him again. He can shoot. Sometimes, as I say, he hit 1 or 2 kindergarten wides on Saturday. You know, and if he can improve in that, it'll make him a better rounded footballer. But they put Owen Merchant out to mark him, and you know, for pockets of that time, Merchant was cleaned out. You know, and obviously the one James McCarthy. Obviously, the one James McCarthy back in, possibly to go in back and wing back. They'll be a wee bit worried about their midfield as well. And obviously, when we look up front, yes, I think it was 9 different scores yesterday. But Dean Rock again, you know, Matty talked about Rian O'Neill. Yes, Dean got, I think it was 8 frees yesterday, 1 from play. He's still carrying them a wee bit, if you understand where I'm coming from. And they need, obviously, Colm was out yesterday in the one-time back. Cormac Costello hasn't been as potent as he has been maybe in the league last year or even coming into this year. So there's a wee bit of, you know, Dublin be happy enough, got over the line, the box was ticked, they didn't play overly well. Kilkenny, Fenton again, the consistency there showing, stepped up to the mark at vital times. But there's just 1 or 2 wee issues I would have with them at the back, and certainly then trying to assist Dean Rock up front without Con. Might be a big issue for them.
Matty, he can take away from the Dublin Cork game.
Yeah, Kevin's dead right about the defence. Like that, physically, the full back line is there for the taking. You know, neither of those 3, Gannon, Fitzsimons, or Merchant, I think physically it would be able for David Clifford on a dry day 1-on-1. And then you throw in the likes of Paul Geaney, who's physically a big man as well. And, if Paddy Clifford plays in there, or at some stage Tony Brosnan will play in there, they're not going to be running scared. They definitely need McCarthy back probably into that half-back line, and maybe even drop Johnny Cooper, someone else back to try and shore it up a bit. But I think Johnny Cooper can be got at. Now look, he was actually excellent on Saturday. He gave an exhibition of how to play as a sweeper. There's far too many guys you see trying to play as sweepers, and they're covering space and they're actually doing nothing. In my opinion, the sweeper needs to be the busiest fella back there, trying to cut out the initial ball, but then be smart enough to know, right, I can get time to go and double up on this guy before he can get his head up and stop him making the pass, or if he's going to make it, go and double up on the next guy. Johnny Cooper was brilliant at that the weekend, made a couple of brilliant blocks as well. But I think they're there to be got at. I think actually all of Rock's scores were from place balls. I think he had a mark and 8 frees. I think without him, without Conor Callaghan, I think they really struggled for a focal point in their attack, particularly in the full forward line. Obviously Kilkenny, I wouldn't say wasted at full forward, but he's needed further out the field. He's too much of a playmaker. He spends too much time on the ball, and there's too many good things with it. I think like both Costello, Rock and Small have all kind of struggled without Conor Callaghan there, to be honest. And if he's missing for the semi-final, that's a huge boost to Kerry. Look, we're told he's struggling, which probably means he'll probably be fine and probably play, but I think he's just a massive loss, because he's the one guy who will put the head down. Like, Rock has scored 9 points and kicked him from all angles, but he wasn't really a threat from play against Cork. And you'd be worried then, like, to be fair to Kerry, they have stiffened things up at the back and they're a lot tighter. They're getting a few more bodies back. Their tackling is much better. They're a bit meaner with their frees. So you take away 8-9 of those frees, take away, say, even half of them, you're down to 4 or 5 frees, and they're not scoring from play. The Dublin forwards managed 5 points in play between them. Against Cork, it's not totally inspiring. And look, they're kind of suffering a little bit similar to Kerry, where they've had absolutely no competition so far, and probably even less so than Kerry. At least Kerry had a good Division 1 team, or a decent Division 1 team in Mayo to play, so it'll be interesting. I think both of them are probably a little bit undercooked, and we'll only see how good they are when they play each other, because it's the first big test for both of them. But 5 points in play against Cork is not overly inspiring. And Kevin is dead right. You close down Kilkenny, you close down Brian Fenton, and like David Bourne looks like he has the bit between his teeth again, and would certainly be able, I think, for Fenton 1-on-1 at the moment. I think you close down the two of them. I think you take away an awful lot from Dublin at the moment, but it's going to be intriguing. I just really hope it's played in a dry day, because I think this could be another Armagh-Galway with a bit of luck.
And John, it's quite ironic that we'll come to talk about this, obviously, hopefully with Matty next week, and when we look at the Dublin Kerry game, I think the only way that Kerry can win this game is by going all out attack. They've built this season around them shoring up the defence. I've talked about how poor the defence was the last couple of years, but you know what? The obvious thing for me is people say maybe Dean Rock will put Tom O'Sullivan on him. No way. Put him out in Kilkenny. Make Kilkenny go backwards, because Tom O'Sullivan will make him think the other way. And I think if Kerry go all out attack against Dublin, they will ask Dublin so many questions that they haven't been asked over this past maybe 6-7 years. That, for me, as I say, I'm a big Kerry man, but I'm not trying to put the scud on. I think they're big favourites for this game.
Kevin is saying something there, I think, that's really relevant about putting the likes of Tom O'Sullivan and making Kilkenny go backwards. It looks to be something that teams are really concentrating on this year, and Kevin said it about the Armagh game as well, where Shane Walsh and Comer were pretty far out the field, I think, and Rory Gallagher, it looked like he done it deliberately in the Donegal game, where Brendan Rodgers really had Michael Murphy on the back foot all game, basically. But it looks like something that managers are trying to get. Like, the number of times yesterday that both Aidan Falker and James Morgan were in the full forward line, the Armagh full forward line was unbelievable, considering they're marking 2 of the best forwards in the country down the other end of the field. It looks like an absolute tactic the teams are trying to drive the better players back and keep them away from the goal. Why wouldn't you? And it looks like something it's happening, I think, more and more and more. And I think it's obviously something the teams are working on to try and keep the better players further away from goal, because it's easy bottle them up in there, but Shane Walsh is not a threat to you 100 yards from the opposition goal. So whether it's something the teams are working on, it looks there's too much of it going on as far as I'm concerned for it to be very obvious. And like Tom O'Sullivan is the perfect example of it yesterday. They've used Killian O'Connor for his third point. Killian O'Connor chased him back the whole way, in fairness to him. Tom O'Sullivan jogged back. It took him a while to get back, but Killian O'Connor was still on the halfway line. when Thomas Sullivan got back to the full back line. Like, and if you're doing that, you're hammering the hammer, as the All Blacks say, and there's no better way to do it.
John, I used to have a coach in St. Galls, and he subsequently went on to manage Antrim, but he played basketball. A lot of people might have heard of him, PJ O'Hara. PJ was 25 stone, right? But he was a brilliant thinker about the game, and he always used to say to you in corner forward, you always have to make that guy think. Because if he's thinking, he's more worried about you than you are about him. So he used to say to me when we were minors or under 16s, walk him to the corner, because he's thinking, why is this guy going out to the corner flag and back again? You're keeping him busy. And, a lot of the cornerbacks, like the guy from Derry at the minute, the number 4, McCluskey, is it Conor McCluskey? He's had an outstanding season. How many points has he scored in championship football? He's up the park all the time. And his opposition managers are asking the corner forward, where are you? What's this guy doing?
Like Phil McMahon and the Gooch in the final.
Yeah, he's your responsibility. So that's part of a player's job, is to make their opposite number think about what you're doing. When Brendan Rodgers thinking, Michael Murphy after 70 minutes of an Ulster final, he's pumping up the field, asking Murphy questions. So it's a big part of the game now, and I think that one of the things that you've got to do for the bigger players is the likes of Fenton, the likes of Kilkenny, is always posting problems. What's this guy doing for the kick out? Where is he now? What's he going? Is he dropping short? Is he going long? Is he cheating on me, sitting off for Fenton cheated a wee bit yesterday, as I would call it, when he got his 2 points. If you watch him, he comes from deep. I think the second one was a beautiful strike from about 45 yards. But his guy was maybe in the zonal defence and didn't push out on him. So, you've got to always pose your opponent different questions.
And then do you feel like a lot of defenders are afraid maybe to do that, to go up the field, like a lot of counties, Kev, like to take that chance?
I don't know if Matty would agree that in our time, defenders maybe weren't as skillful. In
your time, they were very sticky.
Across the board, they weren't as skillful in terms of being able to go up the field and knock a point over the bar. You got someone like Andy McNulty, a very, very sticky marker. But I don't think Andy ever scored a point in championship football. In fact, if he even had a shot, I think Joe Kernan would have had a heart attack, Whereas if you got somebody else like Tom O'Sullivan or Mike McCarthy from Kerry, totally different breed of player. Now, no matter where you play in the game, we're seeing it with Ethan Rafferty. Everybody has to be able to think on the ball. Everybody has to have the core skills. And you know what? If you're playing corner forward, cornerback, a guy could be coming out the field. And you've got to be able to play out there. You've got to be comfortable out there. So I think what we're seeing now is a more rounded footballers who can do most of the core skills and score, compared to maybe when me and Matty played, where you could get a guy at cornerback and, he may have won an All-Ireland, but he punched past the ball 96 times and never kicked it.
Kind of like a Ricey, kind of like a Mark O'Shea to a degree, Kevy.
Mark O'Shea, as Matty will tell you, Mark O'Shea was one of the most phenomenal cornerbacks I ever seen. The guy could play middle of the park for you if he wanted. I remember watching him one time down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it was a Munster final, and it was the last minute of the Munster final, and he scored an outrageous point.
Oh yeah.
Underneath the stand. It was a beautiful curling point, and no other cornerback in the country could have scored it. But that's what Kerry produces, all out footballers, and we're seeing that more and more when McCluskey, a cornerback,
like some of the lads.
Even Lee Gannon yesterday was able to go up and score a point or two. Merchant, as we've seen the other year in the All-Ireland final, was able to score a goal. You've got to be able to adapt and play. Your style's got to be fluid, in my opinion.
Great point, Kev. Great point. Absolutely. And the other quarterfinal this Saturday, lads, you Derry 5-13, Clare 2-8. Matty, we definitely did not expect this. We thought Clare would give Derry a massive run for the money. Let's just say this was a Rory Gallagher masterclass.
Another Rory Gallagher masterclass, to be fair. Like, look, to make no bones about it, and to be fair, I find it a bit strange that Clare didn't try to shut up shop to start, just to get themselves into the game. Like, the new Derry's plan, get ahead, and open the game up and, you know, make the other team come out. And if they do, they're in serious trouble. But like, I was a bit surprised how naive Clare were, to be fair. Like, Derry just ran straight down the middle time after time after time. You know, there was nothing. I would say exceptionally gifted from a point of view of coaching or anything like that, but it was just really hard running and keeping the ball very well. Like, look, they have some unbelievably really talented individual footballers, but like, I just felt it was very, very naive from Clare. The way they set up, like, they were completely shell shocked. Like, any time they got themselves back into the game, bang, they went back down, and they hammered in a goal and just, you know, they kept that lead. And, you know, once they got the lead of 5 or 6 points, it was game over, and it looked game over from a long, long way out. But look at Clare. You know, I think, like I said, was maybe on the Sunday game, they said last night, they look like they've kind of reached a plateau, and that's as far as they're going to go. But the one striking thing for me, the whole thing, was Derry, how calm they were after the match. You know, they shook hands with each other, they shook hands with the opposition, and walked off like they have bigger plans. And, you know, they weren't planning on losing on Saturday by any manner of means. But to be honest, I thought to win the game with a bit to spare, but not that much.
That was mad,
You know, it was very, very simple, and like, they seemed to be just. We've spoke here numerous times about lads, you know, going in on goal and hitting the balls high, but the balls were going by the keeper like rockets. Like, Conor Glass's finish was, if it hit the keeper, would have took his head off, his head would have landed in the canal end. It was like a bullet, you know. So, like, when they're going that hard, it doesn't matter what height they're at, because they're not going to be stopped anyway. But they obviously really have it in their head. They're going for the jugular early. And you know, it's set up for a really interesting one with Galway. But look, you have to hand it to Gallagher, in fairness to him. He has homework done on everyone. And I just said again to the guy who was with me yesterday, you know, when that match went to penalties, I said the real winner here today is Derry. You know, they will be licking their lips, you know, sitting back now, nice and fresh.
Gallagher.
Like, it's going to take Galway both physically and mentally a week, 10 days to recover from that, and you have a very, very short lead into a semi-final where, you know, it was nice and routine for Derry. They could afford to take off a couple of players, you know, get a bit of shooting practice in, give guys a bit of a run. You know, it was a comfortable quarter-final performance as you'll ever see. I think, you know, probably even more so than Kerry and more so than Dublin.
Conor Glass, Matty, an unbelievable game by himself, all-star form. I think I've seen a few tweets, give him the all-star now. A great game, a great goal. And by God, he's kind of emphasising all that's right about Derry football at the minute, Matty.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, but like, he's not just a big man. He can get around the field, and he has, like Kevin was saying, he's all the core skills. But one thing that was kind of striking me a bit yesterday, particularly in the first game, you don't have the huge big midfielder around the middle of the field anymore. Like, Killy McDade came over near us for his interview. He's not physically really imposing, but he's a guy that just can get around the field and get up and down all day. And that's, I think, where midfield is at. I suppose, like, Tyrone, to be fair to them, are one of the ones that started that. They wouldn't have had a huge midfield with the likes of Sean Kavanagh and Kevin Hughes at the time. Obviously physically big men, but you don't have, like, there's no need for the big 6'5" 6'5" midfielder who can just catch the ball. They have to be able to get around the field, and Fenton is a great example of that. And there's none better than Conor Glass, because he can do everything. You know, so I look at he's phenomenal, and, you know, he's a great file beside him. I mean, whoever plays, whether it's Toner or Bradley that comes on, but like, their understanding of the game, like their kick out strategy of pushing up on the Clare kick out, literally the 15 of them is fascinating. And whatever side the ball is kicked to, they just absolutely swarm it and pick up the break and just run away with it. And, you know, it's some innovation to have the balls to do that in Croke Park in an All-Ireland quarter final, because look, sometimes it's probably going to go wrong, but I think they had Clare literally frightened to the death that every time they got the ball, they looked like they were going to score a goal. Like, the keeper even came up to the halfway line to be that extra man. But look, they're smart enough to know if the ball is landing on one side, a couple of guys that aren't in play on the other side are well able to shift back in around behind if they do lose the ball, and still to get themselves back into a defensive position really, really quick when they lose the ball. But like, from having like, it's the strangest one I've ever seen. Most teams I would have played on, or you'd be coaching or whatever, you'd be trying to create space in the full forward line. There was often times where they had 4 or maybe 5 guys across the full forward line inside the 14, where they create space right in front of the goal. And then if lads are getting blocked up, the guys just coming on the loop. But it's they must have had to put in some time into this. In fairness to Rory Gallagher, they must have spent some time with this, because it works to a T. Like, to go from having maybe one guy inside the 45, then the ball is turned over and they win it back. They could have 10 inside it by the time the shot is taken. Like, they're again, like we're saying about
exhausted looking at it.
The first game, yes, yeah, their levels of S&C are must be just through the roof, and like they were going as hard at the end of that match as they were at the start. So look, you have to take your hat off to Gallagher, and like you were saying, I think they're life contenders. They really do.
I'm telling you, 100%.
So if they get to a final, and to be honest, I fully expect them to. They have nothing to lose, and whether it's Kerry or Dublin, I'll tell you, they just don't care. They just seem to don't care.
They're just they're non-stop. Like they're absolutely
they're relentless. They're playing with this abandon that they just don't care who they're playing. And as you say, if to get there, and I do think they will get there. Yeah. They'll have a plan in place for whoever it is, and they won't give a goddamn about anyone.
Maddie, as Oisin McConville said about Cavan's performance against Donegal, like Derry just looked like they're coached within an inch of their life. Like it just looks like Gallagher. Like you've seen him in pre-game, in the bit of the warm-up, just freaks. It's great to watch.
But it's like what Kevin is saying. They're all really comfortable at doing their own job, whether it's the corner forward tackling or the cornerback kicking a score. They all have the license to go and do it. Like I noticed yesterday, numerous times yesterday with Mayo defenders coming forward. They came forward, got into shooting positions, straight through and goal. And I wouldn't say straight through, the point of view of being 20 yards out. They're coming around the edge of the D, but they're going left or right looking for a forward to give the ball to. Have the confidence to kick the ball over the bar. Let him at it, let him do it. Because, if it's easy enough to tie up 3-4 forwards, well, easier than like if you have cornerbacks coming from midfielders, halfbacks coming and kick the ball. You can't stop that. It's just coming in waves. And like Donegal at the time, they were well able to do it. Defenders were able to kick scores, but all the better teams now, particularly the Division 1 teams, every player is as comfortable on the ball. The cornerback is as comfortable as the corner forward. And Kevin's dead right what he was saying. Back in our day, if one of them crossed the 45, particularly a guy out of full back line, he'd get a nosebleed or he'd be ran back. But that's not the case now. And Derry are the epitome of that, where if it's on, go and do it. And by the way, they also have the basic skills to do it and do it really well.
Donegal of 2012?
Different, I would say. I think Derry are probably prepared to kick the ball a bit more. Maybe not as direct as Donegal, but like they don't have a Michael Murphy and a Colin McFadden in the full forward line. To a certain extent, of really good players in there, don't get me wrong, but they don't have guys who are going to win a load of high ball. Michael Murphy obviously will win it all day, and Colin McFadden's a huge man as well. Paddy McBrearty, while only a chap at the time, is 6'3", so he's going to be able to win the ball over his head. Derry don't have those players, but I think it's a similar enough. And look, there's an awful lot of similarities. There's an awful lot of similarities between the two. You'd have to say that. Just look at the running power alone. I think it's very hard to get away from saying that they are quite similar.
Mr. McGarty, your take on the last team left from Ulster in this All-Ireland series, my man?
Yeah, look, let's not be disingenuous to Clare. They got their tactics wrong. They were coming into Croke Park, maybe again a bit nervous in the fact that first quarter-final in a very, very long time. As Matty articulated, they have excellent players up front, the likes of Keenan Saxon, Tuberty. Podge Collins is a busy wee bee when he wants to be. But literally they came up against a team much better structured, much better tactics. What Clare did, unfortunately, was, they went to a Japanese prisoner of war camp and they were executed. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I think Matty articulated as well. The one word that I would use about Derry, regardless of the opponents on Saturday, was they were bloody ruthless. Every side of goal, every sniff of goal, they punished. Every turnover, they were hungry for work up and down the park. Again, I'll come back to it. Paul Cassidy epitomised that. Wing half forward, you seen him in the full back line. You seen him up trying to get scores. The structure of this team is just right. You asked the question to Matty there about Donegal. Definitely not in terms of player quality, in my opinion, but as a more rounded team, without doubt. Without doubt. Now, the big question I would put to Derry after this game, because I don't want to focus on the game too much. Okay, we can talk about Shane McGuigan gets 1-8, or, guys turning over the scoreboard. Conor Glass had a great performance. The big issue for Derry is this is now the coming of age. So this is Conor Glass coming back, first year in after being in the Aussie rules. Has he really marked anybody this year in the championship? My opinion is Conor Kirkpatrick was coming off after a great season. Brian Candy makes a stupid decision, gets sent off early in the championship game in Tyrone. We don't see the best of him. or we don't see, him going one-on-one with a guy. Now, this might be controversial to others. Donegal's the same. Monaghan, Darren Hughes is maybe getting that wee bit older. We didn't really see him have much of a test, with all due respect to everybody in Clare. He's going to come up against Paul Conroy now, in the form of his life. And this is the time for Glass, McCaig, Rogers, Benny Hearn's that wee bit older. This is their time. Are they going to get an opportunity like this? The same way as this is Shane Walsh's time.
Mm-hmm.
This is Paul Conroy's time. This is Damien Comer's time. So this is what the narrative going into the semi-final is going to be. And, Glass really has to step up to the mark again. This guy has everything that you want in a player. Very similar to Fenton. He's up and down the park. He's all the key skills. He's fit. He's got the strength and conditioning. He's got the desire. Now he really has to turn it on and bring that leadership. And that's hard for a kid at 20, 21. But didn't we see Tohill do that in 93? So, he's big shoes to fill. I think he's the capabilities of doing it. I think Derry were ruthless at the weekend. They showed their intent. I think they're going to be very hard to beat. I think that they will beat Galway. I think it's going to be intriguing to see the matchups in that Galway game, defence-wise for Derry, forward-wise for Galway. But I think Matty earlier on articulated this, and I have to re-emphasise this. Derry have one weakness. Who is it, Matty?
Keeper.
100%. So, my ask to Porrick Joyce is, to make a good game of this, are you going to push right up on the Derry kickouts? Because Derry, I don't think, are going to push up in the Galway kickouts at the start. I think they're going to suck them in and then hit them on the break and get into that lead. And they're going to do it time and time again. And the big thing for Derry is they've got McCaig, they've got Rogers that can hold Comer and can hold Walsh. And I just think Derry are massive favourites for this, but I think they need their guys like Glass and McCaig and Rogers. These guys, Gareth McKinley's another one. Him and Tierney going one-on-one is going to be a brilliant battle. But these guys have now got to step up to the mark, because both sets of players are never going to have an opportunity like this again. But for me, Derry structurally are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I know what Rory Gallagher's going to do 2 weeks out of this game. Probably Porrick Joyce does too. It's how Porrick Joyce combats this with what tactics he plays.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, lads, I think Derry have a huge chance this year. And we've seen it at the weekend. We've seen it so far in the championship. So on the go to the All-Ireland semi-final against Galway now in 2 weeks' time. And Matty Ford, your player of the weekend?
To look at, most of them obviously came from the first game yesterday. I know he got man of the match. Killian McDade did, but I thought he was unbelievable. He got a bang and had to go off and went off for blood. He came back on, like his levels of fitness again. We're talking about that an awful lot tonight, and it's probably very pro. But I thought he was outstanding yesterday to take on that chance yesterday to level it, at that stage of the match, in injury time, to level it, when they look kind of dead and buried, look devoid of creating chances. It always phenomenal bit of skill, and he done a bit of everything yesterday. They said, look, you have to take it into the context of the game as well. Derry had a quite easy. Shane McGuigan was kicking scores, but you have to look at the pressure he was under, kicking a lot of them, which was next to none. And obviously Thomas Sullivan was outstanding. And look, there's loads of other, I think, honourable mentions, but I thought McDade was probably, and he's not, I said, not physically a huge man, was head and shoulders above a lot of people at the weekend. And there's going to be a great chat, I think, next Monday night, leading into those two games about matchups, and there's so many of them are so intriguing. But to me, it was I'd go with Killian McDade, and I think I'd go in for footballer of the week.
Mr. McGarty.
Very hard to disagree with that. Again, back to what Molly said. Look, the Derry game was a bit of a damn squid. Dublin were in second gear. Honourable mentions to the veterans in the Kerry team, David Moran and Paul Geaney, and certainly to Tom O'Sullivan, who was Medi. But when we're talking about the nip and thrust and bulk of a championship and a leader coming up at them particular times, it has to be a guy in the Galway Armagh game. I'm going to go a wee bit different. For me, as I said, I thought Rob Finnerty was brilliant, but Matthew Tierney was at the centre of everything that Galway did in terms of the goal chances that he created. He came up big for them when they were 3 or 4 points down to knock that, to make that decisive run, to cut open the Armagh defence, to give it to Killian McDaid. And just for a bit of a difference, go with him. So Matthew Tierney for me.
Just on Galway, they were saying like the Irish, like they're, I would say, I suppose tongue in cheek, a bit suspect at the back. And to be honest, I think a lot of it is the keeper. Like 72 minutes in yesterday, they had only conceded 13 points, and they were doing a lot of things yesterday that I kind of haven't seen probably this year, but definitely in the last number of years with Galway, where they were prepared to get guys behind the ball. There was lads putting their head on the line. They were making blocks. They were blocking players. I think they have definitely improved at the back. There's no doubt about that. Like Kieran Malloy spent an awful lot of time, when they lost the ball, took him back into the right area. John Daly never left the centre open at any stage, and Armagh were rarely able to run down the middle. At them, I think they definitely have improved at the back, but the goalie, I think, obviously is the big Achilles heel. I think any of those goals don't go in, particularly the first one, which never should have happened. And there's no extra time, there's no penalties, there's no drama, there's no fight, there's no nothing. Galway have won the game, fully deserving, and probably having only conceded 13 points. I think we'd be talking about it a little bit differently instead of conceding whatever it was, 3-18, something like that. So I think that they've definitely improved at the back, but have they improved enough for a Derry? Like, Derry's strength is in their collective. It's not in a load of really good individual forwards like Shane Walsh or Comer or Finnerty. It's in their collective. So look, it has the makings of a brilliant semi-final as well. But I just thought it was worth mentioning that I think they've definitely improved at the back. But I think the goalie is the Achilles heel without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, John, I have to hold my hand up. I did say throughout the year that I thought Galway at the back were very poor. Look, Silk, Sean Kelly have been excellent. Silk in particular yesterday was really good as well. So there's an honourable mention. I did say to you about Kieran Malloy a while back. I seen him playing for NUIG. Excellent wing back. He played him cornerback earlier on the year, exposed him a wee bit. I'm still not sold on John Daly, but I'll take Matty's point on board. So look, I have to give them credit where it's due. By the way, for any kid or anybody else watching in this, if you're a goalkeeper, when I was young, I used to be stuck in nets, maybe Matty, for a senior game. And when the ball comes into you like that, and the goalkeeper panicked yesterday, when he has it in his hands, knock it out for a 45, knock it out for a sideline, just kick it over the sideline. You got to play with your head. He panicked yesterday and he just threw the ball out. The other one, Matty, was, again, it comes down to leadership. And as you rightly say, maybe if Sean Kelly's involved, the big ball that came in, and it almost bounced twice.
Yeah.
Nobody attacked that ball. There was no authority, no leadership from the goalkeeper. From what I'm led to believe, he's a former Galway United goalkeeper, and maybe soccer-esque. But, it is, for me, a big issue. I really do think that Pádraig Joyce is going to have to think long and hard about, we've got to think about keeper's confidence and stuff, but does he replace him for this game? It's a big call.
I know, like a few years back, if that ball was landing in Armagh Square and he's been on here, big here, do you come out and ball, men, cornerbacks, corner forwards, the whole lot to be going. There's no way.
Man, ball and all.
Absolutely.
I was there one night, he took man, ball and all, took the first row of the crowd as well, and then threatened everybody in the first row of the crowd.
That's exactly what you want to your keeper, because look, at the forwards going in know that as well, and they're not going to be as inclined to head into a square with a guy like that coming out. But look, it is a big issue, and look, there's been a couple of dodgy ones. There was one again Donegal, and there was one again at the weekend. I think the same with Derry. It's an accident waiting to happen in a big game. They've got away with it so far, but I think I do think it's interesting. And look, we haven't really mentioned it, but look, please God, common sense will prevail, and Sean Kelly will get back for the semi-final, and obviously Aaron Nugent will have his red card or whatever the suspension would have been rescinded, because if that's an actual official rule, it's probably one of the worst they've ever come up with, and that is saying something. So look, please God, if he was to miss an All-Ireland final and ahead of that, or an All-Ireland semi-final, it'll be some disgrace.
Here.
Before we finish up, lads, sincere condolences to Johnny Burta. He booked the hotel for the All-Ireland final weekend. I think he'll be looking for a refund, lads.
To be fair to Johnny, I was chatting about the match yesterday, and Johnny sorted me out with a couple of really top quality tickets, and he had a what do you call it? free cancellation. He said he was mad not to, because to be fair, I wouldn't like to be on trying to book a hotel for All Ireland final weekend at the moment, because let's say it's a pretty.
He could sell it on. He could sell it on. Yeah.
I think Johnny was probably the real winner in booking it with no payment. I tell you, if the Cavan boys thought of that, they would have done it long and ever. They'll do it every year for the next 100 and hope to get to an All Ireland final.
They'd be selling it on, Manny. Now, should about 20% on top of it.
They'd sell it on for a packet of biscuits. Never mind for 20%.
Hobnob biscuits. Oh, there we go. I just had to get that dig in, because no doubt Johnny will be giving out all week that Armagh we're bet. But lads, thanks a million. That was absolutely brilliant. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgarech.com and Attack Today. Use promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgarech.com. I get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Attack Today. Be attack minded. Matty Ford, Kevin McGurdy, an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, guys. See you.
Thanks, lads.
Cheers.